Here we are, Andy.
Here we are. This is the Room 9 Recovery Podcast.
And we are representing the whole recovery team out there in the world, trying to get through one day.
One day at a time.
Just one day at a time. Just for today.
Just for today. It's a whole new way to live.
We do recover.
We do recover, so they say. Quick background. My name is Andy. I'm an alcoholic. My sober date, July 21st, 2018. This is my friend Sean.
I am Sean. Thank you for introducing me. I appreciate that. I am also an addict. Andy failed to mention he was an addict as well as an alcoholic. Alcohol is a drug, by the way, in case anybody was wondering.
Period.
And my clean date is April 12th, 2018. I think that's the year right now, right?
It is the year right now.
2018. Yes, that's it. And that is it. And we are, we wanted to start this thing. We kind of did some rough ones there, champ, and we want to get this out there. We want to push it. We want people to hear our stories and participate in this wonderful, very beneficial but very difficult journey of recovery and staying sober.
Some days are easier than others, and but I'm told it's worth it. And I see it. I belong to a home group, and a lot of the people at my home group have some pretty significant time. We're talking 10, 15, a couple of these guys 20, close to 30 years, and I see how their lives look. And some of them are wealthy, some of them are not. But what I mean by when I say I see how their lives work, or are, I should say, they're happy, they're peaceful people, they're content with themselves, they're content in their relationships, they're not anxious and high-strung and wound up as I am. And I'm told that comes in time. It comes from working the steps. As you know, and now the people are going to know, I'm a big advocate of the 12 steps. I see it as a path to freedom, but it's not an easy path. It's definitely not an easy path. You got to do some real soul searching and be really honest with yourself. And essentially, like, I'm in my fourth step right now, and I'm on the fourth column, which is basically identifying my behaviors and my I guess you can call them characteristics, and it's basically a summary of what a piece of shit I have been. I'm seeing a common theme, like with the fourth step. You got the first column, that's basically who the resentment is against. The fourth step, okay, let me back it up. The fourth step is the searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. So you got your first column, and that's going to be who the resentment is against, right? Because you write a resentments list. It could be a person, an institution, whatever. And then the second column is what it is. You know what I mean? I could say, like, my mom, and she didn't hug me enough as a kid, could be the resentment, whatever. And then in the third column, you write down what it affected. Did it affect your pride, your self-esteem, your bank account? There's a whole list of things that it could affect. And then the fourth column is where you look at, some people say your role in the situation, but it's basically like how you acted in the situation. Was I selfish, dishonest, self-seeking, and how was I frightened? And in doing that part, a lot of things are coming to light. I'm seeing how dishonest I am. I'm seeing how I'm afraid of a lot of things, afraid of judgment, afraid of abandonment, insecurities, all that stuff's coming to light. And so it's tough to get through, but I'm seeing the value in it, because now that I can see these things, now I can address them. Now I can pray on them, and I can work through these things to become this better person that I'd like to be. And it's some pretty powerful shit, but it's not easy, as you said. This is not an easy thing to do, and I'm really happy that there's been a format laid out for people like us to follow, so we can become integrated in society and be a productive, positive member of society.
Yeah, I think it's I think it's important to remember it is just a format. And one thing you hear all the time throughout going through rehabs and going to meetings and that is, we're all the same, essentially. It's 3 times I can use the word essentially in one podcast, that we're all the same. And the more I pay attention to it, again, I always go back to, and I'm not a fan of statistics and stuff like that, but there is a very high percentage of people who don't get through this and don't do this. And part of me realizes that, yes, we all are similarly the same in, on the outside as far as our addiction and usually it's, to cover up or escape for something, in life. But I find that we are very, very different, because if we were all the exact same, it would be very easy to come up with one solution to get everybody fixed, or you know what I mean, to get through their addictions. And I find that, you have to go through these things, on your own, and have to be very willing and open, because you can be in the best system ever and still fail, or you can be in the worst system ever and succeed if you really want to do it. And I feel like it really goes back to digging up the roots, talking, and digging up roots to get to what it is that you are running from, what it is in yourself that you are using, your addiction to cover up and to numb and to not face. And we've mentioned it before that, their addiction comes in all sorts of forms, not even just drugs. And, I would like to think that even this podcast not only will help out the recovery, crowd, it can also help out many people who will listen to it and find ways to, search themselves and dig into it. Because really, you can take the steps, I feel, and use them without even addiction. You use them, or not without addiction, but not with addiction with drugs. You can use them for other addictions, whether it's, shopping, whether it's just materialism in itself, in order to find out why you are trying to, not be introspective, not dig inside your own mind and figure out what is going on. Because you can even see it people with television. I mean, I want to escape from life and not, think anymore. So I'm gonna binge watch TV every day, all day. I'm gonna go online and just keep ordering all these things, and you still turn around and find this gaping hole inside of your, air quotes, soul. And so, I'm hoping that it's kind of, what we can establish here is just bringing a community together through this, because we don't have all the answers. I mean, I'm only 6 months into this clean game, this sober game, and just kind of really looking around to find out what works for me. And I'm hoping by what we do here and what we hear back from other people and what other people get from this is just different little tidbits of how to make their journey a little easier and how to fix certain things in their lives.
I think that's a really good point that you made about the 12 steps could be applied to many things outside of just drug addiction, alcoholism. There's 12-step programs for gambling, overeating, all of those things. And it's in my opinion, it can be applied to any sort of obsessive behavior. You brought up TV. There's people that are nuts about their shows, and they'll call off of work to watch their show. Any obsessive behavior is going to be unhealthy, whatever it is. It could be exercising, it could be overeating, whatever. And that's what the 12 steps do, is they help you break yourself down in a way that you can view individual things that lead to that behavior. A lot of drug addicts and alcoholics have gone through different life traumas, or have like emotional difficulties, that kind of thing. And that's, like you were saying about escaping, that's why I went to drugs. And I didn't know what I was trying to escape, because all in all, my life was all right. You know what I mean? We grew up poor, there were struggles and that kind of thing. But, I grew up in a part of the world where even poor people, like, we can do pretty well. There's a lot of social services and that kind of thing. So, I didn't have a terrible life, so I could never really understand exactly what was going on that made me want to escape so much, because drugs were fun at first, and boozing was fun at first, but it got to a point where, like, I don't want to do this anymore, and I didn't have a choice. I was thinking about this earlier, and it didn't dawn on me when this happened, but I think I was 19 or 20, and it was 9:30 in the morning. It was a weekday, and I was driving towards the highway. I was in my truck and driving towards the highway to go back to get more drugs. And I was supposed to be in court that morning at 10 o'clock, and I couldn't turn around. I didn't want to go and get more drugs, and I remember I was crying in my truck, and I was screaming at the top of my lungs, I don't want to do this. Why can't I, make the choice to not do this? And I didn't realize that's just I was in the grip, as they say. I was in the grip of my addiction, and I didn't have a choice in the matter. So once it got to that point, common sense and anybody with any kind of logic-driven mindset would say, well, then just don't. This is hurting you, don't do it. But that's the obsession part. That's the obsession of the mind. And they say that addicts and alcoholics suffer from two main symptoms: the phenomenon of craving, which is once I start, I cannot stop. Once I take one drink, one hit, line, shot, whatever, you cannot stop. You lose all power of choice. And the other symptom is the obsession of the mind. We obsess about these things. And so what the 12 steps does, this is my understanding, so hopefully I get this right, is that it helps me get into why I have that kind of mindset. What the things that are causing me. And so in doing my 4th step right now, I'm seeing my role in things, and I'm seeing my selfish behaviors, my self-seeking behaviors, the things that I'm afraid of. So these are all things I'm trying to escape from. The fears is what I'm trying to escape, and then the selfishness and self-seeking. These are behaviors that I developed for whatever reason. I'm not sure exactly how it came about, and I don't think that that's really the important part. But it's given me a chance to see the way that I see the world. It's given me a chance to really break down my perspective on things. And in doing so, now I can, keep working through those things and work past it. It's basically, they say as a result of these steps, we have a spiritual awakening. And that spiritual awakening, from what I can understand, is a whole new perspective of the world. A new way of looking at things, a way of, wanting to do things for people, be of service. And, so that's how I'm going to defeat my selfishness, is by being useful to others. And they say that that's kind of the key to a happy life. You look at the happiest people, grandparents, how happy they are when they get to buy their grandchildren a new toy. They don't, physically or tangibly benefit from that, because it's the kid that's getting the toy, but the fact that they were able to do something for somebody that they love is what makes them so happy. And that's something I've never experienced in life, because I am selfish and self-seeking. So this is what I think they mean by, a whole new way of life. It's not just about putting down the booze and the drugs. At first, that's the easy part, because I can physically put something down, but not picking it back up is the hard part, because once I put it down, I no longer have anything to remove myself from the way that I feel. And when I start, because I'm so selfish, when I feel uncomfortable or agitated or angry or whatever, I don't want to feel those things, and I know a way that I can avoid it. So trying to stay away from it is the hard part, and that's where this program of recovery kicks in, because once I start doing this program, those feelings are going to become more manageable. You know what I mean? And not just through the 12 steps. We went through a long-term rehab program together. We ended up being roommates, and that's kind of how this whole podcast thing was born. We would sit up and have these amazing conversations, and now we just decided to record them. So it's this is another huge part of my recovery, because I love your insights, I love your advice and your take on things. You know what I mean? I really get a lot out of that. And anyways, I kind of sidetracked there. But the point is that you mentioned willingness earlier, and that's really what it comes down to. Because this isn't my first. I'm 36 now. This is not my first time to try to change what I'm doing, to try to get away from the drugs and the alcohol. But I just didn't quite have enough willingness until recently. It was June 6th that I walked into detox at 291 Elm Street in downtown Buffalo, and thoroughly beaten. I'd lost everything again. A Jeep got towed. That was a tough thing to watch. And repossessed. Changed the locks in my apartment. I lost everything again. And just morally, spiritually, physically defeated. And I've told you about this, but I'm going to say it again. Standing in front of that door at the detox where you got to buzz in, and it's a glass door, and just looking at my reflection, and I kind of locked eyes with myself, and it all just sunk in. It all hit home. What the fuck have I done? What have I done with my life?
36 years old.
Yeah, and this is that's where the willingness really kicked in, because it's I got nothing left. I got no ideas left on how I can manage my own life and how I can learn to figure this thing out, because it's just not, I can't figure it out. I suffer from the disease of addiction. A hopeless and helpless state of mind and spirit, and me being stubborn, I didn't want to think that I couldn't figure this out on my own, so it's a humbling experience to have that willingness and to really reach out for help and to be willing to take whatever suggestions that are necessary to get me better.
Yeah, the willingness thing is always interesting to me, because I wonder, one of my biggest things is, what if, I don't have the will, or I don't have, I'm just too apathetic to want to change, and I'm just too stuck in my ways. And you see time and time again, so many people are willing, at least say they're willing, and even look like they're willing to change and not want to do this, but they just can't. And one of the other things I remember in the good book the big book. I always call it the good book. That they say, you know, there's few who have, you know, there's nobody who has really tried this and has, you know, failed at this. But I always wondered, like, people at some point who fail it, at that moment are giving all they can and still fail at it. And what becomes that issue? That's what I've always been thinking about. Like, there's, at some point, there's just some people who are in their minds, they're willing, they're ready, they're so done, but yet they can't stop, and what it takes. And I feel like, again, it goes back to digging up those roots and finding out what the main cause of this suffering is, what this pain is, that is keeping me, you know, going, that is keeping me from wanting to dig it up. And that's why I feel like the relapse is so high, that people don't get to their main root. And I've said it a million times before, like, you know, I was at Horizon Village now. I'm leaving tomorrow, October 21st. And I've been there for 3.5 months, and maybe have met with my counselor for maybe 25, 26 hours. If I met with him an hour a week, it'd be about like 26 hours or something like that. And that is nowhere near enough time. Like, I have to put in every day, going to groups and putting something into it and really trying to gather out what I need and what I need to fix in my life. And that's where I kind of go back to the difference, how we're all different, because everybody has a different path of how they got to where they're at. Mm-hmm. Yes, you have a lot of similarities throughout addiction, a lot of generalizations that are there for a good reason, and you can pinpoint a lot of things. But if somebody is not going to dig into the depths of their mind, heart, soul, you're going to just end up pruning back a few things, and your addiction's going to grow back stronger. Mm-hmm. And it has to come down to that. I mean, I've seen it a million times of people who just half-ass it in rehab, half-ass it in their places of where they have these opportunities to just fight and dig in. And it kind of goes back to the whole, you know, if enlightenment was easy, everybody would be enlightened. Mm. You know, I'm not saying that when we come out of rehab, you know, we're searching for enlightenment, but we're searching for a fix, something to change us, something to get us off our body. And it's not easy. It's so difficult to look at yourself, to be introspective enough to where, all right, this happened to me as a child, this happened to me as a teenager, this happened to me as an adult, and I'm hurt from it. And now I have to admit it. I have to dig into it. I have to find out what it is and why why this happened to me, why, you know, the ways I'm going to change it. Mm. And if we don't do that, we're stuck. We're stuck. We don't continuously, and it's a continuous process for the rest of our lives. Mm-hmm. And again, it goes past addiction to drugs. It's every human being has this thing inside them that just is, like, I don't know what it is. And in order to get inside and find out what it is that needs to be changed is not an easy task.
No, it's definitely not. And I mean, as you go through life, of course, like, a healthy life is constant development. You know, as you grow older, if you stay doing the same things for your entire life, it's going to be stagnant and it's going to be boring as shit. But I want to get back to the willingness thing, like you were talking about people who go into rehab, and when they have the crap kicked out of them, and they first get into detox and stuff, it's like there's a little bit of willingness there. But like you said, if you're not willing to dump it all out, and it's everything, the shit you don't want people to know about, the stuff you want to take to the grave to you, and the things that you just don't have the courage to face, those things need to be faced. Otherwise, you will not succeed. That's where, like you were talking about in the big book of AA, those who thoroughly followed our path. You know what I mean? So that's all of it. Somebody at a meeting yesterday kind of broke it down for me as far as willingness, because I told them, you know, I started dabbling in meetings when I was 17, and it was for all the wrong reasons. But then I went back out and kept doing my thing, and then when I started going back around AA and started getting into detoxes and rehabs and stuff like that, I was becoming more and more willing, but still not willing enough. So he looked at it like this, you know, like we'll say like the higher power, right? Like I call my higher power God. And so if God's the ocean, this like seemingly limitless, infinite, you know, power that can solve all my problems, and if I walk up to that ocean and I bring like a thimble, like that's my level of willingness, then all I'm getting out of that ocean is a thimbleful, you know, and then I go back out, I get beat up a little bit more, and I come back with a little more willingness, and so I'm willing to dig into some more shit that I wasn't willing to dig into before. Now I come back with a bucket. Well, then I'm going to get a bucket's worth. So until I'm ready to pull up with a dump truck full of all my shit, everything that I'm afraid of, hurt by, insecure about, like all these things that are bearing down on me and causing me to continuously pick up drugs and alcohol to numb these pains, until I'm willing to pull up with that dump truck, I'm not going to get anywhere. I shouldn't say that. There'll be like a little bit of growth, and maybe that could inspire people, like, hey, last time I went in, I felt a little bit better. So maybe if I bring more to the table, I'll feel even a little bit more better, So hopefully people make it back, but a lot of people are not making it back, especially now with all this fentanyl bullshit going around. Like, people are dying daily. I was in detox a couple months ago. By the time I made it to rehab, 2 of the girls that I was in detox with were dead. These were mothers. These were good people, good human beings. I had conversations with these people. We sat down, ate food together, chopped it up, and it's fucking heartbreaking to know that these women are dead now, and they died alone. That's the saddest thing, because they just couldn't face all that shit that needed to be faced. Like, we got to put our anger aside, our pride aside, and essentially just get down on my knees and just whatever it takes. You know what I mean? Like, whatever needs to be done. I think it's in the AA big book somewhere where they said, we came at it with the desperation of a drowning man. Like, think about it. If you're just walking around on the street, you're not willing to break your fingers for no reason. But if you fell through a frozen pond and you're trapped under the ice and your life is on the line, you're going to be clawing at the ice, busting your hands apart, trying to get through that ice so you can get that life again, so you can get that breath to keep breathing and keep living, sorry. So that's the way that I need to approach this thing, because my life is on the line. I may not die right away, but I mean, sometimes living feels a little bit worse than dying anyways when you're living that kind of lifestyle. So that's what willingness means to me, and it's difficult because I'm prideful, I have a huge ego, and that shit needs to be smashed, because it's only going to hold me back. If I'm not willing to listen to other people who have gone through this process and know the path to freedom, that are more than willing to help me. You know what I mean? These people are driving from all corners of Western New York to come pick me up, to do step work with me, to take me to my home group, and to really do this thing. I don't know.
Yeah, like that's a good example of how one person can go through rehab once and get it, and other people have to go through eight or 10 times.
Yeah.
To come out and with a successful trip through it. And yeah, willingness is a tough thing, man. I've kind of, almost look at willingness as motivation a lot sometimes. And there's probably slight differences there, but, motivation kind of to me has always been an unreliable thing. And if you can replace that with discipline, I think discipline along with willingness, discipline along with motivation is, where it comes in. I don't feel like going to a group. I don't feel like going to a meeting, but I'm going. I don't feel like doing this, and that's when you find yourself really starting to change and get into a different mindset. And I think that's really what it takes a lot, because there's plenty of times at Horizons that I did not feel like going to group, but I went, and I was able to pull so much out of it. I think I've skipped one group, and I was just towards the end of my stay there to play guitar in the one room. I was like, you know what, forget it. I'm going to sit here and play guitar. But I mean, every other day I was just in it, even if I didn't feel like being in it, to really just work hard. And looking back, at my 3.5 months now at Horizon Village, I don't see many days where I wasn't giving it 100%. Just let's go in here. I'm tired. I'm exhausted today. I don't feel like doing this. I'm going to at least four groups a day, for the most part. What the heck? It gets tiring. But to push yourself through it and be able to come out, with something useful, something that you can apply to your life and change it. It's been, a really beneficial process. And at my continuation the other day, there's my counselor said, a lot of people said stuff about my leadership qualities and, stuff like that. And my counselor was like, I don't think when you first sat down with me, when you first got here, you were no stranger to these qualities, and you just cursed them. And because I didn't want the heaviness, I didn't want the weight of it. I like being in the background. I don't like being in the forefront of, the leader of stuff. And I've always wanted to be the guy with more assists and goals. And he said, but I think with the biggest change that you've had is that now you embrace those. And I think that's a lot. That's a big thing in all of us too. We have these awesome qualities, and we do not even want to look at them because sometimes they're overwhelming. These qualities in us, and kind of swinging it back around to discipline and willingness. I mean, we have to be willing to put ourselves out there. We have to be willing to embrace not only the crappy qualities in us, the dark qualities in us, but the beautiful and positive and light qualities in us.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like it's equally important. One of the biggest things I've, kind of come through this whole thing with is just the B word, balance. Having to have balance in everything. Balance in my dark side, balance in my light side, balance in my pride. Having pride in the work I do and in myself and, the quality of life that I'm living, but not getting that toxic pride of cockiness, overconfidence of where I think I got this and I have everything under control. And to be able to really take that off and manage with those things. It's just everything in your life, anything you can think of, you need balance in. From exercise, from reading, from eating, meetings, you need time to yourself. You need to go to meetings, but you need time to yourself too.